You're up.
Okay, welcome to the meeting of the Kennebunkport Planning Board for December 4th. And the attendance, we have one man missing. George couldn't make it. He informed me of same, so it's all fine. That doesn't change the voting because he's an alternate also, so that's about the same. First point is approval of minutes. They were fine to me. Anybody else have any problems?
I
No?
move to accept the minutes as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Well, that was easy. Okay, in honor of, let's just read the finding of facts. I don't want to try taking anything out of order after last week. So, the first item is 190903 Kennebunkport Conservation Trust Site Plan Review for creating a parking area. And this is the FOF. So, Ed, hit it.
We approved this application last week. These are the findings. Kennebunkport Planning Board findings of fact and decision. The application of the Kennebunkport Conservation Trust for the Guinea Road parcel, 16-2-1E, Kennebunkport, Maine, 04046. Following site plan reviews pursuant to the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance, held on 16 October, 6 November, and 20 November 2019, and a public hearing held on 20 November 2019. The Kennebunkport Planning Board makes the following findings of fact and conclusions and renders the following decision, subject to the conditions enumerated below. Findings of fact are as follows. The applicant is the Kennebunkport Conservation Trust, KCT, or the applicant, with a mailing address of P.O. Box 7004, Cape Porpoise, Maine, 04014. The property has a street address of Guinea Road in Kennebunkport, Maine. The property is identified as map 16, block 2, lot 1E on the municipal tax assessor's maps. The property is located in the farm and forest zone. The applicant authorized Mr. Jamie Laurie, a KCT volunteer, to represent them at the 16 October meeting. Mr. Russ Grady, Vice President and member of the KCT Board of Directors, represented the applicant at subsequent meetings. 6, the applicant has demonstrated a legal interest in the property by providing a warranty deed recorded in the York County Registry of Deeds, Book 14-538, pages 431 to 440, on 22 July 2005. 7, the property comprises 2,321,748 square feet, 53.3 acres, per information provided by the applicant. The property is not developed. There are no structures on the property. 8, in an application dated 19 September 2019, the applicant proposes to create a parking area as an accessory structure on the property. 9, in the application, the use of the property is described as conservation land, park. Because the property had not previously been before the planning board, the previous use of the property had not been formally determined. After discussion, the board agreed that park, which is a conditional use in the farm and forest zone, is the appropriate use designation for the property. 10, in addition to the original site plan application package, the applicant provided an updated project description to clarify that the size of the proposed spaces would be 13 by 20 feet, which exceeds the minimum 10 by 20 feet required by the land use ordinance, and B, a sketch, revision 4, dated 10/29/2019, showing the orientation of the parking spaces and the entrance, exit, and one-way direction of travel. 11, the applicant requested no submission or performance waivers from the requirements of the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance. 12, pursuant to the requirements of Article 1010A of the Land Use Ordinance, Guidelines for Decisions, the Planning Board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes a negative ruling on one or more of the following identified findings, which would otherwise compel denial. A, the proposed use meets the definition or specific requirements set forth in the land use ordinance and will be in compliance with applicable and state or federal law. Finding is yes. The proposed use will not create fire safety hazards and will provide adequate access to the site or to the buildings on the site for emergency vehicles. Finding is yes. C, the proposed exterior lighting will not create hazards to motorists traveling on adjacent public streets and is adequate for the safety of occupants or users of the site and will not damage the value and diminish the usability of adjacent properties. The finding is yes. Comment no lighting is proposed. D, the provisions for buffers and on-site landscaping provide for adequate protection to neighboring properties from detrimental features of the development. Finding is yes. As shown on the sketch, a landscape berm will be constructed at the entrance to the parking area, which is at the end of the proposed parking area closest to the abutting Steele property. E, the proposed use will not have a significant detrimental effect on the use and peaceful enjoyment of abutting property as a result of noise, vibrations, fumes, odor, dust, glare, or other cause. The finding is yes. F, the provisions for vehicular loading and unloading and parking for vehicular and pedestrian circulation on the site and onto adjacent public streets will not create hazards to safety. The finding is yes. The proposed use will not have a significant detrimental effect on the value of adjacent properties which could be avoided by reasonable modification of the plan. Finding yes. H, adequate provision has been made for disposal of wastewater or solid waste and for the prevention of ground or surface water contamination. Finding is not applicable. I, adequate provision has been made to control erosion or sedimentation. The finding is yes. The plans include a 200-foot silt fence for erosion control. J, adequate provision has been made to handle stormwater runoff or other drainage problems on the site. The finding is yes. K, the proposed water supply will meet the demands of the proposed use or for fire protection purposes. Not applicable. L, adequate provision has been made for the transportation, storage, and disposal of hazardous substances and materials as defined by state law. Finding is not applicable. M, the proposed use will not have an adverse effect on significant scenic vistas or on significant wildlife habitat, which could be avoided by reasonable modification of the plan. Finding is yes. And N, the proposed use will not have an adverse impact on, N looks to be a additional copy of M on my copy here. So we're going to have to strike that. Sorry, guys. O, the proposed use will not cause unreasonable highway or public road congestion. The finding is yes. And P, existing off-site ways and traffic facilities can safely and conveniently accommodate the increased traffic generated by the development as far away from the development as the effects of the development can be traced with reasonable accuracy. Not applicable. Conclusions. Article 1010A of the Land Use Ordinance mandates that the Planning Board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes one or more identified findings that would otherwise compel denial. And as noted above, the Board makes no such findings. Decision, the site plan application identified above is hereby approved. Conditions of approval, if any, pursuant to Article 10.11 and 1012E. 1, the applicant, pursuant to 1012E, shall notify the Planning Board prior to the transfer of rights to construct an approved project. 2, the applicant must record a copy of this decision and provide proof of such recordation in the York County Registry of Deeds before any permits may be issued or before any construction activity may commence. 3, the applicant shall comply with all the terms and conditions of the Town of Kennebunkport ordinances, dated 4 December 2019 by the Kennebunkport Planning Board.
The duplicate.
Yes,
Is there one missing?
that's what I want
Because of the duplicate?
So we'll look at that. And I'll do that while we continue on.
Okay, so we'll approve that afterwards.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Okay.
because that's the only concern. If we're missing one. Okay, well, let's call up the next presenter, which is item 191, 1015 Greer Road Trust, Walsh Engineering. And I see we have Walsh Engineering himself here tonight.
I am here, thank you. Mr. Chairman, Bill Walsh from Walsh Engineering, as you said. I'm here representing Celeste mayor of 5 Greer Road Trust. What they are proposing to do is a volume expansion and some stairs to be changed on their house down at 5 Greer Road. To orient you all, Cape Porpoise Harbor is down here on the bottom, and Langsford Road is right here. Greer Road is, when you come down Langsford, it kind of turns somewhat hard right here. And Greer Road is just this little private road that comes in off of Langsford. So we're looking at this property right here. The parcel itself is 0.2 acres. It's 8,800 square feet. There's an existing single-family residence. Show you some photos of the home. This is the home, so out here is Cape Porpoise Harbor, and back to the left is Langsford Road. The house itself is relatively close. You can see right here, there's a seawall that exists out on the Cape Porpoise side. It's only about 14 feet from that, and we are mostly within the, flip this over because it's a little easier to see at a larger scale. So that's the same thing, just the lot blown up a little bit. The seawall is down here, again, Langsford Road is out here. And we're relatively close to the water right there, we're about 14 feet away. The 75-foot setback runs right through the house here. So we are within the resource protection zone, obviously, hence the reason I'm here tonight. The house is served by public sewer and water. It has a lot coverage of 41.2%, and we are actually within the flood zone as well. So the A2 flood zone exists. This is the flood zone line. The A2 zone is here. We are actually elevated above that flood zone. The floor elevation of the house is at elevation 10.5, and the actual flood zone is elevation 10, so we're slightly above that.
And the new and old?
That is existing or effective that we have.
Okay.
I don't know that I have the new ones on there.
Sorry,
The new ones.
so is that the elevation of the top of the floor or the floor?
That's the floor elevation, so it would
Top
be
of
the
the
top. Yep. Look at this real quick. Is it? Yeah, the effective is 9.3, which actually runs back up in, around the whole property is actually within it, right there. It's 9.3, or depending on which datum you use, it's actually elevation 10 on NAD 88. So the proposal is to, go back to my pictures here. There is existing storage space, which is represented right here in this photo. So there's some stairs that come up, and behind this, there's a storage area right here. The plan is to actually sort of build up, so we're not increasing the footprint, we're actually taking that storage space and just expanding it out. It's about 3 or 4 feet that it just comes out. We're not going any further than the existing footprint, we're staying within the footprint. So it's basically going vertical and putting a dormer on the building.
Do you know, was that storage area added to the house?
It's been there for, I think, for quite a while,
Quite-
as far as we understand, it's been there.
Since '89?
Yeah, it's been
Okay.
there for the duration. There is some, we did do a file review, and it showed that in the older reviews. So this is a graphical representation of it. So the yellow would be the expansion, and that existing storage space is kind of down here at the bottom. So basically, we're just going up and dormering this. That dormer's gonna be right there. So there's the storage space, and that dormer comes out like that. So it represents about a 4.3% increase in the volume of the house, so we're well below that 30% allowable. And the second part of the project is actually pretty simple, and I'm not sure it requires your approval, but we did bring it in front of you just because we're here. These stairs right here have stairs that just go up on one side. And what she would like to do, and apparently historically this is what was there, is to bring stairs up here and bring these stairs up to a landing, and then another set of stairs that go into the building. Again, it doesn't increase the footprint, we're simply realigning the stairs over there. So, obviously no change in volume on that, we're just changing the stairs. So, a couple of relatively simple changes and additions. I think, again, the reason we're here is because we're in the 75-foot setback. We do have to file probably a permit by rule for the, just any ground disturbance. I think this building's actually elevated up. You can see the skirting here. It's elevated up a couple of feet, probably 3 feet out of the ground. And we're gonna probably just have to replace the foundation piers, if you will, underneath that section right there to support this addition. So we'll have a little bit of ground disturbance there, and we'll have to file a PBR for that, for adjacency. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Just a tidbit of confusion. I looked at the warranty deed,
Yes.
and the first half is a nice deed, and the second half is a description of an easement for two of the people to go to a dock.
Okay.
And I'm assuming you're doing nothing with the dock. In fact, I
Nothing.
didn't see any docks on your drawings.
Yeah, there is nothing, so,
So what
To
is
give you
this
a-
easement thing?
to give you a little perspective, get back to the bigger picture here. Celeste owns this home.
Yes,
Her daughter owns this home. I believe the easement is for this dock, which I'm sure they share that dock. So I think
okay,
that's
so
what
that's
the
an
easement's for.
existing, there
So-
is a dock there?
Yeah, there's an existing dock right here.
Okay.
I think that they had that approved as well after the code
Yeah.
review.
Yeah, that's one of those ones where they were able to combine the frontages. There's a provision that allows for two lots, if they enter into an agreement, an easement agreement, they could combine the frontages to,
Okay.
you know,
But this-
to have enough frontage for a dock.
This dock wouldn't be permitted now because it's now a velocity zone apparently. But whenever it was included, it was
Yeah.
okay.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that was fine
Yep.
then, yep.
Which,
So Celeste owns the property and the property behind that.
She actually owns this one as well. I'm sorry, Celeste owns this
That
one.
one, yeah.
It's really an unbuildable lot that exists back here
Right,
on that one.
and then the next door, is that her?
That's her daughter.
That's her daughter.
And her
Okay.
daughter also owns the house behind it as well.
So those 4 houses use the dock?
I guess I'd have to look and understand that, to be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure. I do know Danielle, her daughter,
Danielle Dignan.
You Dignan,
Okay,
yeah.
got it.
And I know she and her mother share that dock.
All right.
And
You
given
know,
that
it's not,
Danielle owns it.
it's just here for completeness on the
Absolutely,
on the deed and
I
has
had
it.
trouble finding that dock too, so
yep.
it's confusing.
Yes. Okay. Well, I think I'm out of questions, I don't know.
I don't have
Other-
any. Ed?
Ed?
No, I didn't have any questions.
Okay, no. Larry?
Nope, seems pretty straightforward.
Right, okay.
I will point out a very small typo I noticed in the letter, so when you go to write the, assumedly we get to a writing of the findings of facts, I think we have in here 0.18 acres, it's actually 0.2 acres is the lot size. So it was a minor thing, but I noticed as I was reviewing the information today that was incorrect.
Okay.
Well, one thing I just wanted to clarify is the trust is, let's see if I can find it. The name of the trust?
I believe, based on that deed that I saw,
Yeah,
it is,
5 Railroad Trust.
yeah,
5 Gear Road, and
Trust.
okay, so, but it's not Julia and Celeste trustees, it's Julia Mayer and Celeste Mayer trustees.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually believe it's Celeste and her sister, I believe, is Julia. Just to confuse matters a little more.
So just one thought came to mind though. So when you reconstruct the stairs, is that going to have an impact on hand railing or guardrails that you might need?
Not really, let's see.
I mean, it seems like a small space to put a landing and then another
Yeah,
stair.
I think they reconfigured it, so this probably works best, but
Mm.
what was here before, if you can envision this,
Mhm. Yeah, okay,
is this,
yeah,
and so it did this,
Oh,
and then behind here, and
Mhm.
then I think it'll actually go into this deck space slightly,
all right.
is a couple of stairs that will exist back here. So she actually has an old photo of the building that had it
Oh, they're gonna
originally.
return it to
It's
an
really
original
returning it back to the
configuration.
original, yeah. So there'll be a rail that I
Okay.
think runs up the sides here. It apparently is just awkward. You enter the house, or from the driveway out here, and you have to kind of walk around and do a 180 to get up the stairs, and she kind of wants to take it back to what it was originally.
Well, under the code, isn't it, after a certain height, you have to have a railing?
Correct.
But-
Yes.
But under
Yeah.
What is
Yeah,
it,
once
3
you get up
feet?
over, once you get up over 30 inches.
30
Yep,
inches?
then you
Yep.
need a guardrail, you know.
Yep. And there is room for that. I'm sure they're gonna put a rail
It's already got a
on the
rail.
outside of this, and that's what was there originally.
And the other thought that comes to mind is there a minimum size for the landing? I mean, I know there must be some guideline, like
Yep.
3 feet by 3 feet, or,
Yeah, I mean, your typical landing is a 3x3.
yeah.
Yep.
So it seems kind of a small area to try to
Yeah.
fit that in there.
He actually, David Graham's the architect on this, he actually drew it out
Oh,
here, so that actually shows it, and I misspoke, I guess they're not going back into the existing porch, they're gonna have a couple of stairs right there, you can see that and make sense of it.
yeah.
So, those would be new, and these would be the new ones as well. These are kind of existing that would get. You wouldn't go up 5 stairs, you're only going up 3 stairs to that landing. And then there is a rail, that represents a railing on that side.
That's the last, it's the very last page here.
Oh, very last page.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, the porch functions as the landing.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, great, thank you.
Well,
Yep, okay.
I think this looks complete, so anybody want to so move?
I'll move to find the application complete.
I'll second it.
Okay, in favor?
All right.
Okay, so we will see you in 2 weeks
Okay, great,
for a public hearing.
okay. We'll be here.
Okay.
Thank you.
You'll need a case manager.
Oh, yeah, we need a case manager, I know that. So, it's probably too early to take it a little too long,
Yes.
but soon. Okay,
Should I do it?
yeah, if you want to do it, that's
Okay,
wonderful.
I'll be glad to, yeah.
Okay, so Larry is taking the case manager,
Okay,
and now, Ed, what's the answer?
So there was, in fact, an omission. It got slipped down. Despite my best efforts, I really thought I had gotten it. I don't know how it happened. So I have if you deem this edit acceptable, I've inserted in handwritten form, the real item H, the design of the site will not result in significant flood hazards or flood damage and is in conformance with applicable flood hazard protection requirements. Finding is yes, and I've deleted the duplicate,
Okay,
and I've
sounds fair.
initialed it in several
And
places.
you've done it twice and initialed it?
I have.
Okay,
It's
cool.
just messy, that's all.
Okay, so we will get these
Unfortunate.
signed. And I guess that's it. Unless-
Yeah, I did, I mean, a question came in, I know we're not, we don't have 2 meetings in January.
Yes.
So we just have the 1 meeting in January because the first falls on the holiday. So we do have another application that came in, and met the deadline for, obviously for for January 1. I know we just got done having a discussion about timeliness of submittal and all of that. But the question was raised to me, and I'll just pass it along to the board if there would be entertainment on having the initial review for the application that came in at the next meeting.
It's reasonable, because then it'll be a month before we have,
It would
we
be
have
You're saying the
anything.
one we got in the
following
mail
it.
today?
So,
Probably, yeah, I would
Yeah,
imagine,
okay,
yeah.
yeah.
Yep,
okay.
yeah, because otherwise, yeah, it would be a month before.
That's the Harrington one with the house.
Correct.
That's
Yep.
correct. That'd be good to get that started.
Yeah.
Then you have
Yeah.
a large gap
Yep.
before the next meeting.
Yeah, that's the only question, it's just, you know, it's not at their own, obviously not their own, it's not their fault, you know, and that they certainly got it in timely, but again, the question was asked, and I figured I'd bring it to the board, so.
I'm good with it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think, do you want a motion to that effect, or just say we will?
Just let me know, I mean, I don't know if,
I-
I don't know
I-
that I necessarily need a motion, I just
Okay.
need to,
Show of hands?
You have it already, and
Yep, we
it
do,
will be
yeah.
mailed to us shortly, is what you're saying, or what?
I got mine today.
I
You
think
got
it's
yours
in-
today.
It's in the mail.
I haven't
Yeah.
checked my mail today, so,
I got a notice, it's in the mail.
okay,
Yeah,
so
okay.
yeah, we've got it, it's 2 weeks ahead, that's really not 14 working days,
okay,
but it's 14 actual days, so what the heck.
okay.
So I think we can do that.
Yeah.
Now, I will entertain a motion.
To adjourn?
Do we want to talk at all about
Park?
the definition of park that
I
I
suppose,
know
if you wish.
Larry drafted? Something I thought looked like we should discuss, agree upon, and get inserted into the next update of the land use ordinance. It gets updated from time to
From
time.
time to time.
I don't think there's any more urgency than that, but we'll,
To call a special town meeting to
No,
do
no,
it.
but let's put this in the queue.
yeah.
Yeah, if we can get, well, when he gets back, if we can get Werner to put it in the queue, so we need John to sign.
At some point, Tom,
Another
we
one
should
coming.
talk about the update to the subdivision regs that's
Yeah.
still hanging fire. But,
Yeah.
so let's do this first. This is-
Okay. So, the question before you is, we wish to put a definition of park
Yep,
in the land use ordinance whenever the next mod happens, not a special one just for the purpose of defining
no,
park.
so that would be for June.
Yeah.
You know, and
June,
so,
okay.
off the top of my head, I think we just need to have language ready, and submitted. I wanna say February is usually when we have, you know, preliminary language, so, hey, we're ahead of time.
Oh, hey.
So, if
we
you
can
have
agree on it
Larry's
by then.
latest,
I do,
and we kinda like it, so why don't, if you
Okay.
could get it in the queue for June.
yep,
The last one?
The shorter, as he chopped it down.
Yeah, I thought the first sentence says it all. but
Yeah, really, the first sentence says it all.
The second 2 sentences are more descriptive, but that's okay.
I wanted to ask a question about it, you know, since
Put a
we
lot of
don't,
time into it.
since we don't chat about it on email, but it only goes one way.
Yeah.
The second to last iteration of the definition had a phrase in it that said that a park was for public use.
Yeah.
And I know
Have to be.
I know I commented back saying I thought that was an important part, and then the next definition, that was omitted.
Yes.
It can be public or private. A park can be private. For example, a park can be set up for a subdivision for the use of the owners only.
That's true.
Okay, so I'll accept that. So then the second question I had was, and I just wanted to ask the board, do you think that a preserve is a special type of park? Or do you think that it's something else altogether?
I think it's semantics, really. I mean,
Well, these are the definitions, so yeah.
so, but I mean, by the fact that somebody chooses to call something a preserve doesn't necessarily, I think, throw it into a different use classification. I mean, it's not like we've got
I happen to agree,
elephants
but
running around.
But I wanted to get the
No, I
sense from
think-
others.
Yeah. Sure,
I think there
yeah.
are some slight differences there. A preserve suggests that you preserve the vegetation that's there or whatever's there, or you're preserving something. A park, you can change around to horticultural use, you can change it to another use, you know,
That's true.
put in a lot of
Yeah.
benches and things. I think there's a big distinction between
So-
those two
So
words.
so I agree. That's the reason there's the two words, but I'll ask my question again. Do you think that a preserve is a special type of park? Do you think that it has to be a park? It will be a park if it is a preserve, not necessarily the other way around. Parks are not all preserves, but all preserves seem to fit our definition of park.
Because they have to be preserved as that topography and trees aren't cut
It's
down.
natural,
And make a
it's,
baseball field, exactly.
would you read your
Well,
definition?
Well, yeah, let me, maybe if I just read the version 3, so, and it's, you know, I had all that information, and then Werner kindly quoted the excerpt from the dictionary. which
I didn't think it needed to be Regent's
Which we
Park, yeah.
then modified. So we have a modified dictionary version. So the current version is that a park is an area of natural, semi-natural, or planted space for human recreation and enjoyment and/or for protection of wildlife or natural habitats. A park may have facilities for rest and recreation. A park, it often is owned, set apart, and/or managed by an individual, an organization, a trust, a city, a state, or a nation. That's it.
I liked it, and the only reason I'm pushing on this is because all of this came up in the context of the Edwin Smith Preserve. And we decided that it was okay to call it a park, and I wanted to make sure that we all agreed that we have a definition that allows and supports that, because I think
The
it's,
parcel we were looking at was not part of the Edwin Smith Preserve,
It was across the road, right?
yeah. And we needed a definition.
I think they're defining
I
both.
thought
as
that
part of
he was saying that that parcel is a part of the Smith Preserve.
That's what they were saying, but
Yes.
that doesn't necessarily mean that it was, or it is.
I understand that, but
Well,
since
own
they were
both
saying it,
sides of the road.
they were
On
saying
both
it,
sides, but you can have different uses on different sides of that road.
Right.
This is one of the things that bothers me about the trust, is they play games with their definitions a lot to, you know, sort of fit into the land use ordinance. That's why I wanted to have a specific definition for that particular parcel, so we
Yeah.
could go forward with it. And they may come in and say, it's a park, but we want to now consider it a part of the preserve, and here's how we're looking at it, and we're labeling it as such, and that's fine. That's not a problem.
it certainly is, now that we've agreed that a park, that a preserve is
Preserve is a
a
park.
It
type
can
of
be
park, so.
included as a.
so
So
that-
should the definition say protection or preservation?
It did.
Yeah,
Well,
Did
it
it
says
say that?
protection, at the moment it says protection. We don't talk
It
about
doesn't say
preservation.
or preservation,
Doesn't
right?
doesn't
And/or
use-
preservation? Do you wanna
doesn't
add
use
that?
the word preservation at the
well,
moment.
if you're protecting something, you're
But
preserving.
protection is preserving,
Protection
right?
covers it, I think.
That's, I'm thinking,
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm good with it.
I still don't think the last sentence adds anything worthwhile.
Oh, I
to it.
think it's really important, because we had a whole discussion about the fact that could it be a park if it wasn't public? Or did it have to be community use if it was And how could that be? I thought the
Community
ownership,
use was
the
defined as something else.
I thought the possibility of it being, of the ownership being varied was an important thing to capture. I'm glad you did.
But you can leave that sentence out, and you can, cover the
Well,
ownership.
it covers the
and
bases. I mean, I think it
I liked
actually
it
adds
better
value in terms
way.
of where the park came
I have no
from.
problem leaving it in.
Yeah,
so.
it just says, anybody in the world can own it. I mean, you could have just stopped it right as, anybody can do this. That's all it says. It doesn't.
Well, what
it's-
if somebody gives their park to a cat?
So,
Yeah,
Probably wouldn't
so
be the
I
first
would,
time.
I would move that we accept the definition as just read by Larry.
That's fine.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
okay, thank you. So now.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you. So then, so Werner, you've got the revision
Yeah.
3.
Um,
So then it's just gonna,
That'll-
you're gonna
that'll
include it on
Bubble
the.
up the next
Now
time.
the
we
voters
change the
will
LUO. It
decide.
will not be.
With a
Right.
Larry's definition.
It'll-
Is
yeah,
acceptable.
Paren Larry.
That's right, caution. Yeah,
Paren Larry, paren Charles. Yeah, right, but you
that's
just-
right, yeah, Charles L., yeah.
Okay, I will now take a motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I would second that.
All in favor.
Okay.
Okay, we're done.
All right. Let me just, I'll read you a section